our eyes, smile, and we go on.
I may be done taking a chair by the I'll be sure.
All right, and then we'll do our thing. Amen. Well, today is Memorial Day, and I have a little bit of video here in just a second. We never want to forget those who've fallen, because of them, we have our freedoms. You know, I think it's about 675, it's right in there, 675 acres. Acres. Our whole area right here, which includes some right into the woods, there's about 10. We're talking 675. That's Arlington Cemetery. That's the graveyard of so many soldiers, not all of them, but so many soldiers. It takes up 675 acres. If you've never been there, it's something that really touches you deep. I was there when I was probably 10 or 11 years old and can still remember it today. And it's jarring to see rows upon rows upon rows, as far as you can see, of white tombstones for those who've fallen, men and women who've fallen and given their lives so that you and I can have freedoms. Unfortunately, many of those freedoms are being challenged today. But they truly are heroes. The Bible tells us there's no greater love than for someone, man, as it talks about, but to lay down his life for a friend. For someone else to do that. And it happens every day in society. Many times we just don't hear about it. But they truly are heroes, and we want to acknowledge that today. I'm going to play a little video here.
Today is the day we put aside to remember fallen heroes, and to pray that no heroes will ever have to die for us again. They chose to reject the fashionable skepticism of their time. They chose to believe and answer the call of duty. They stood for something. And we owe them something. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We must realize that no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. With God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans. At the grave of a hero, we end not with sorrow at the inevitable loss, but with the contagion of his courage, and with a kind of desperate joy, we go back to the fight.
Amen. We continually have to go back to the fight. They are heroes that represent the freedoms, as I've said, that we hold near and dear to our hearts. They sacrificed everything so that we could live in freedom. It's an amazing thing for someone, whether it be a policeman, whether it be a firefighter, that runs in when all hell is breaking loose. Not everybody has that. The majority will flee, the majority will run, the majority will protect themselves. But there is a select few who will give all and sacrifice all, even if it means their lives, so that others can be safe. Even in the Bible, we know that, especially in Hebrews chapter 11, it's kind of the who's who of the heroes of faith. And we celebrate those men and women all throughout the Bible who had that kind of faith. But here's the thing, that when I started putting this together, what about the ones we never talk about? What about the ones that are like you and that are like me, that may find themselves in a position someday where you have to be the hero? Next week's sermon I've already started on. I'm putting together a lot of video because I'm going to deal head on with the evil that's in this world right now. And the sermon title for next week is, Are There Any Heroes in the House? Because what about those unsung heroes, the ones we don't talk about from the Bible? And I'm going to just mention one today in Jeremiah. It's Jeremiah chapter 38. If you end up wanting to go back and read that chapter, it's fine. I'm not going to take the time to read the whole chapter. But I'm going to tell the story of Ebed-Melech. You ever heard of Ebed-Melech as a hero? Nah, most of you haven't heard of Ebed-Melech, period. Let alone as a hero. Those of you that have been around the Bible your whole life probably have no clue who Ebed-Melech is. You see, because he was just an ordinary individual that in all actuality became a hero and actually saved the prophet Jeremiah. Everybody here heard of Jeremiah for the most part, especially those of you that know something, even if it's just a little bit of amount of the Bible. You've heard of Jeremiah the prophet. But what you didn't know is that if it weren't for Ebed-Melech, Jeremiah would have died. And all that he accomplished as a prophet would have never happened. So I encourage you to go back and read that. But basically, let me give it to you here. They served under King Zedekiah. He was pretty spineless. And Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, had told the king, he said, look, if you don't surrender to the Babylonians, here's what's going to happen. They're going to come in, you're going to get handed over to the Chaldeans, and everything, you're going to be wiped out, you're going to be killed, you're going to be murdered, your wives are going to be taken, all the women are going to be taken, all the kids are going to be taken, and this city is going to be burned to the ground. Now let me give you a little bit of difference between today's self-claimed prophets and the prophets of old. The prophets of old many times, most times, had really doomsday type prophecy. It wasn't, oh, hey, prophet so-and-so said so-and-so is going to get elected. No. It was just like the prophet Jeremiah. If you don't remedy this, here's what's going to happen. They're going to come in, they're going to take your women, they're going to take your children, they're going to kill you, they're going to burn the city to the ground and everything. If you don't surrender to the Babylonians, you're thinking, what? Surrender to the Babylonians? This was the only way they were going to be protected, and this was from God. That was how prophets worked. And they were anointed and appointed by God. They weren't self-proclaimed prophets. And so guess what? Imagine this. Now here's the surprise. His leadership around him, King Zedekiah, the governors of the different provinces, different things, well, they didn't like it. Don't most people, if someone comes and tells you something a little bit ugly, you don't want to hear it, right? You want to dismiss it because you want things to be the way that you want them to be in your mind. So they didn't like it. So here's what they did to Jeremiah. They took Jeremiah, basically King Zedekiah, they came to Zedekiah and said, hey, we need to take care of this guy. And he's like, hey, I'll tell you what, basically doing those Pilate things. I'm going to wash my hands over here. You guys do whatever. I know nothing. Kind of Schultzy. That dates me. So Schultzy. I know nothing. Only the old people are going to understand that, like me. But anyway, and so they take him, and the Bible uses terms like they lower him by a rope down into a cistern. Well, that doesn't sound real dramatic, right? These are deep water cisterns. This one has no water. This one has a ton of mud. And how many of you know when they're trying to kill someone and they want someone dead, they're not real gentle. Not real gentle. Can you imagine having exposed arms and being lowered deep, several feet down into a cistern by ropes under your arms and what that would do to you? And the pain from that, and he's stuck in the mud. There's no food. He's going to die. That was the design. And Ebed-Melech, a eunuch, he goes and he works he works in the kingdom, but it's just like, do you think anybody here can just go in and knock on the president's door and go, hey, I'd like to talk to you. Got time for me? Hey, this is Darren, Indiana, Paoli, the big metropolis down there. You know me, right? No, you don't get to go knock on the president's door. You didn't get to go buddy up with the king neither. So he was taking his life into his own hands and risking death by going to the king, and he tells him, he says, look, this is wrong. They're doing this out of evilness. This should not be happening to Jeremiah. And so the king actually gives him 30 soldiers. So he goes from doing this kind of secret thing. Now he's exposed, and he's out in the open. Everybody knows what's happening, but he allows him to take these soldiers, and they go and they rescue Jeremiah. But even in his wisdom and in his thoughts, he watched probably how he got lowered and put in this cistern and all this. He's going to die. He goes, and in his wisdom, his godly wisdom, he gets old towels and old cloth and different things, and he sends them down with the rope as they're going to bring Jeremiah out, and he says, here, wrap these around these, put these under your arms, and as we bring you back up. He knew probably just how horrific it was when they put him down. Probably the injuries that he would have had, or the injuries that he was going to get coming out. But it's amazing how he thought ahead of that even. Ebed-Melech becomes a hero, saves Jeremiah. And here's the thing. Whether it's in life, whether it's for God, it doesn't matter the situation, you too can be a hero in somebody's life. You think you cannot. You think it takes this or it takes that to be a hero. No. It takes drive, it takes determination, and it takes sacrifice. Men, you can be heroes of your children. Just by the way you love them, just by the way they see you put your boots on in the morning or whatever it is. You get ready if you work at a desktop somewhere. It doesn't matter what you do. But they see you day in and day out providing, but yet you still come home and you still show them love. You still show them attention. Same with towards your wives. How many of you guys realize, us guys typically, especially us country boys, we know brawn and we know guts and we know all that stuff and the rah, 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 and, and Rambo knife in the mouth and going through, I'll get that thing. And, that's just the way we think. A woman likes to know that she's protected by a man like that, but she also likes to know that her man has a place within him for her that has enough softness and gentleness to love her and to give her what she needs, because it's different than what we need. You can be that hero. You can be that same hero within your family. Now, it may be saving someone's life. It may be, who knows what happens someday. They may take an old dude like me and you have to enlist for something. I don't know. Maybe Sherry, before I go, teach me how to make some gravy or something. I don't know. They'll probably look at me and go, hey, he's going to be good in the kitchen. And I'll be like, no, you better take her. She's the one that was good in the kitchen. It didn't have anything to do with me. But you can be that hero. And we all need to be heroes at some level. He was a hero, and you can read this if you want to as you read in Jeremiah 38. It's going to be kind of between 8 and 11. But Ebed decided he wasn't going to sit back. He was courageous. He wasn't going to sit back and watch this prophet Jeremiah fall to his demise because these individuals were plotting against him. He wasn't going to sit back and let it happen. It's one of those things you have to have the courage. It's just like I mentioned firearm. There was one time, I have one example probably in my life, not that I was a hero, because I wasn't. There wasn't anyone in there, but me and another friend, I was probably in 6th, 7th grade. He was probably a 9th grader, and we're right down from his house. This house is on fire. We see these flames just engulfing out. So, I mean, we had been in the house. We knew the layout of the house and this and that. We didn't know what was going on. Here we're kids, but you know what? We charged right in that building to make sure that no one was in there. We knew we were risking things. But we put it aside of us. We went in. We made sure everything was fine, and we got out. Now, am I recommending all that? No, but what I'm saying is it takes individuals be willing to go into a burning building to save others. Ladies and gentlemen, this nation, this world is on fire. And it's going to take a group of Christians willing to be heroes, not angling to be a hero, but willing to go into the burning buildings of life and to pull out those who are meant for destruction that will live an eternity in hell. We have the opportunity to be those heroes. I'm going to unfold, and I'm not going to use my words. There's going to be a lot of video next week because I'm not going to use my words. I'm going to use their words, and I'm going to show you exactly what's going on in this world. Because we turn too much of a blind eye to what is truly going on. The way they're shaping this world, the way they're putting through education, through biometrics and different things, and transhumanity, and all these different things that's going on. Folks, there's some spooky, spooky stuff on the horizon that you probably don't even know about. But we need some heroes. We need some heroes like Ebed who are willing to go in the midst of the fires to pull out those who are going to be lost. Our courage is based upon what? Courage of a hero. Now I'm talking about like even a Christian hero. Or as Christians, that hero, you know, it's based on our trust in God. We run into the fires and the burning buildings of life. Figuratively, spiritually speaking, all of the above. We run in because I have my trust in God. Could I fall at some point? Could things go horribly wrong for me like it has other people? I don't know if you read the story. I forget the young man's name, but the young man who was at the border crossing, and there were some illegals coming across, and they got caught in the currents. And he went in to save them and save their lives, and he ended up losing his as he saved theirs. The saddest part of that story, come to find out, they were drug mules. He lost his life for drug mules. That's the sad part. But he had a hero's mentality and a hero's heart. He saw people. He saw humanity. He didn't see the drug mule. He saw the humanity of life in front of him, and he went after them anyway. Yeah. That's where, you remember my sermons the last couple of weeks, stripping off, looking past Democrat, Republican, and all this political garbage that's being put in front of us right now. Yeah, I could be a political guy too, but I have to be able to separate that from humanity, and I'm going to show you a video next week from a pastor that all of you are going to know their name, and it totally broke my heart when I watched it. Because you'll see where he doesn't separate from who they're affiliated with politically. And it's sad. But we have to be willing to look past, like Ebed did, and like the guy that saved the ones in coming across the river. He looked past who they were as individuals. And he looked into the eyes of humanity and said, that is a soul, that is an individual worth saving regardless. He didn't judge them first. No. He tried to save them first. Ebed-Melech means the king's servant. That's something that Christ showed us through his life as well, that we are the king's servant. We are our Father's servant, regardless of the danger to himself. He was a servant also like of Jeremiah, but regardless, and he was under the king, but regardless of danger to himself, he put himself in harm's way because of the courage and because of a servant's heart to go speak to the king, to address a situation that was ungodly and that was going to meet death for another individual. Jesus personified that when he, even as I talked a few weeks ago, even as the scriptures tell us that here he is basically, he's God. He has all this heavenly of who he is and his divine of nature of who he is, Jesus. Yet he grabs a towel and wraps it around himself and washes the feet of his disciples. Showing the humility, showing even him and who he was and who he is, a servant's heart. He demonstrated that for us. I already talked about the area in Jeremiah. It's in 38, 11 through 23, if you end up reading through that. He kind of felt Jeremiah's pain. He knew, and I've already talked about this, he knew the pain that he would have had lowered in. And through that wisdom, through that godly wisdom, I always pray for this for people, is that wisdom of God to infiltrate into their bodies, into their minds, so that they see with a clear stance and have that place within them that they're looking through the eyes of God in a situation, so that they can use that divine wisdom that only He can have to show you and open your mind up how to deal with situations that are ugly. How to deal with those things that are crippling to families, that are crippling to individuals and to their lives. Only that wisdom from God, worldly wisdom many times tells us to go in other directions. But that godly wisdom, it may tell you to go in and fight when everything in your flesh says run. But being that hero, that unrecognized hero, guess what? You may never be recognized as a hero. Just like you didn't know who Ebed-Melech was, but he was a hero. And even when you look through in Jeremiah, you go down to 39, 15 through 18, you can read it up there. In Isaiah 49, 15, it also goes and talks about how God never forgets. He never forgets His people. And He didn't forget Ebed either. He tells him in this verse, in verse 17 and 39 there, I'll rescue you. Verse 17, I'll not turn you over to those who fear. I will save you in verse 18. You'll not fall by the sword in verse 18. You will escape with your life, verse 18, when you honor God. When you honor God, your reward is assured. Now, don't twist that into, oh, okay, I honor God, so hey, that Mercedes ought to show up any day now. Oh, yeah. Hey, God, check this out. Look what I did for you. How many times have people, either maybe you've known or maybe it's been you, something goes sideways in your life and you all of a sudden start going, well, I don't know why I give in the offering. Why do I pour into the church and do all that? I do that and I do this and then I got, look, my car breaks down. Well, I sure wish I wouldn't have wrote that check to the church today to be that blessing into the kingdom, because, man, look over here. This here just happened this last week at my house. And you start wishing you took all that back because your thoughts of you were thinking you were the hero to God. No. Jesus was the hero. We're the obedient servants. When God says that He'll take care of that, and when I say that your reward's assured, it doesn't mean that it necessarily comes the way you want it. It may be that your kids live a long life and outlive you and become successful, and all kinds of things just amazingly happen. It may be 20 years down the road. You may go through hell on earth for 10 years, and then the last 5 years of your life are just amazing. You don't know how it's going to happen. You don't get to pick and choose. But His reward is definitely there. And it will be. But it may just not come the way you picture it. So wanted to talk today about those who never expected to be heroes. Think about it. It's easy to talk about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It's easy to talk about Moses. It's easy to talk about Gideon. It's easy to talk about King David. It's easy to talk about Saul. It's easy to talk about Paul. It's all these different things. You see, those are the heroes we have came to learn through Bible and through biblical teaching of everything that we know and knowledge, but we forget about the Ebed Melechs. We forget about the common folks like you and like me, who maybe many times in life you have become a hero to someone else and you may not even know it. You may not have ever realized how much of a hero you were to someone. It could have been just a word that maybe I was reading a story the other day about this one lady who happens to see this individual outside and he's kind of digging through some change. He's a homeless man. And it just plays on her heart and she brings him in. She asks him, he's trying to get money for a coffee. She even invites him to sit down with her. And she just talks with him and talks with him. And eventually she buys him a meal and gets him something to drink. And he leaves the table, but he leaves a note. And he tells her, basically, I'll say it in a nutshell, he says, you would have never known this, he said, but I was contemplating suicide today before I ran into you. And you sharing with me has changed everything for me. And I just want to say thank you. She became a hero to someone society would look down their nose upon and say had no worth. But God says, yes, they do. It was just this last week. Put that first picture that I gave you. Anybody know this guy? This is Jacob Albaredo. This is the border security guy who killed the 18-year-old man, Salvador Ramos, this last week, that went in Uvalde and killed 19 elementary school kids and 2 teachers. He was the one who became a hero in the moment of seconds and minutes. His wife was a 4th grade teacher. Her name was Trish. She was a 4th grade teacher there. His daughter was a 2nd grade student there. Jacob was at the barber shop getting his hair cut. The barber happened to have a shotgun. His wife texted him. She said, there's an active shooter in the school. I love you. Immediately, he jumped into action. Everything within him kicked in. Not just his training. Yes, he's going to claim his training. But that thing that makes up heroes and that sacrifice and that willing to go into the burning building kicked in him. That dad in him kicked in him. That husband in him kicked in him. And he said, oh, not over my dead body is what he's basically saying. And he drives, I don't know how many minutes it was. I think it was around 40 minutes he was away. And he drives to that school. Unfortunately, one of the things that came out of this is that once again, the police stood down for about an hour before they ever went in. You know why they stood down? The overarching reason they stood down? Fear of being killed. I'm going to tell you right now, that is the wrong individual that needs to be in the police force. That is the wrong type of individual that needs to be in a fireman's uniform. Because it's those individuals like you and like me that rely on those people that have that hero's heart that will charge in when we won't. And that's exactly what Jacob did. He got there. I forgot to put, what's that second picture? I forgot to give you one of the pictures. Here's his family, beautiful family. Him and his wife, his kids. There's the little girl. But you see the beauty of family there, and that's what he's protecting. But he didn't only just protect them, because as he come in, naturally, like any father, he comes in, he gets with the police, he gets with the Border Patrol, because the police actually asked them to stand down as well. Said no. He got, I think there's four other guys. They created a team, and they go in, 2 guys to go and run cover for Jacob, and then the other 2 to get the kids out as they were filtering through. Naturally, where does he start? He starts in the wing where his little girl is. He meets his little girl. He finally gets to the place, meets her in the hallway. They embrace, they hug. He sends her on her way. Jacob didn't stop. Jacob didn't leave. Jacob didn't go, I came and got what I wanted and what I came for. No, he kept on going. He kept moving towards the perpetrator. He kept moving towards the individual who was taking and killing these kids' lives, snuffing them out as the police stayed and waited outside. But he had a hero's heart. He had a mission in front of him. He saw evil, and he knew what evil was, and he was reacting on that evil. And he was there to eliminate that evil, regardless if it cost him his life. I forgot to put the picture up here. I forgot to give it to Chris. But it was a picture of his helmet. You know what his helmet was when he went in? It was a baseball cap. And that baseball cap, where he got shot in the head and it grazed him, has a rip right through it where the bullet come through when they got to the one barricaded. And then he took his life. We need more men in society that way. Anybody that's ever known me in ministry, I've always been a man's man type pastor, in the sense of stand up, men. It's time and it's your hour and it's your place to be a hero in your home. Just like Jacob was a hero not only in his home that day, but to all those around him. And to all those families that lives were saved. Unfortunately, so many were lost. But he came in and he did something about it. And I'm telling you today, gentlemen, everything around you is on fire, whether you see it or not. Places your kids are going is on fire. I'm going to show you next week even. The schools that they are involved in, I'm telling you, they're on fire. You better step up and be the heroes in your family's lives and in your kids' lives. Otherwise, don't cry about the consequences later. We've had a whole group of individuals and different ones with different ideologies and things going crazy because maybe, just maybe, Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. But the thing about it is, a lot of that is media hype, because Roe versus Wade actually isn't going to be overturned. What will happen is the power will go back to the states, and the states will decide whether or not and when they will allow abortions. That's the truth of the matter. It ain't that they're saying, oh, okay, we're making a federal mandate that all the way across the board abortion is illegal from this day forward. That isn't happening, folks. That isn't the true narrative. But they're mustering up emotion and anger through certain individuals. And here's what you got. You got all of these ones, they're going and basically storming and doing these things outside of these judges' homes, trying to get them to change their opinions and all this stuff. You get rage, you get all this anger and all this venom being spewed on the internet and on the news and everything else about this. They want the right to kill these babies. But yet when another individual, and I can show you a video from a woman who's sitting there going, yeah, a woman has the right. And you mean a woman has the right to kill her child anytime? Yeah, even all the way up to birth, a woman has the right. What about 2 years after birth? It's a woman's right. Do whatever she wants. But then we'll sit back on the heels because this world is so infiltrated with evil, and we'll be mad at an 18-year-old who has flipped out of his mind and killing children, but yet we'll be on the steps of Congress and we'll be on the steps of the courthouse chanting that it's my right to kill children, but then we're mad about this and we can't understand why it's happening.
Come on.
It's because for years we've been conditioning our children for this. I know we want to blame the kids and everything, but you know what? It's our generations that raised those kids. So is it really about the kids, or is it really about us as parents and what we've allowed to happen and infiltrate into the kids' minds and poison them? Wait till you see a lot of the stuff next week. But Jacob said, not on my watch. I'm telling you, men, you need to stand up and say, not on my watch. Get involved in what's going on with your kids' lives. Not in my watch. Who cares if they're mad at you? Not on my watch. They'll get over it. There's plenty of things I was mad at my parents for when I was a kid, but later on in life, and I understood the whole bounds and the scope of life, and I go, man, I'm glad my parents were like that. I know I didn't like it when I was a kid. I didn't like it when I was a teenager. But you know what? If you don't step up and you don't stand up and you don't be a hero in your home, I'm telling you the consequences you're going to pay for in ways you don't want to pay. Because the way that this world is going, they already have their hooks in and they're dragging them with them. We have to stand up. I believe that it is our Christian duty to stand on the Word of God and to stand on biblical principles and protect our children through the Word of God. And being those men that will stand up and go into every fire and every burning building, whether it's our kids, whether it's our grandkids, whether it's the kids down the street, and be those ones that will stand up and be a voice and say, not on my watch. Man, I'm ready to preach next week's sermon. Are there any heroes in the house? We've let this go too long. We've turned a blind eye too long because of what all of our trinkets and doodads cause us to go in certain directions because we're trying to live like the world and the whole time our kids are paying the price. Man, didn't know what you was getting into today, did you?
Not on my watch.
That's right, not on your watch, Dave. Praise God. This walks me in to allow me to address another issue because we hadn't talked about it yet. We had our day where we had different ones of us to get together because we see the evil. I'm an individual, I believe on being proactive rather than reactive. When you're reactive to things, you're already behind the 8 ball. How many of these shootings and how many of these different things have to happen before they become proactive rather than reactive? Laws and legislation isn't going to change this because this is a spiritual battle. This is a demonic force that is going on that has been allowed to be introduced into our kids' lives.
Yeah.
You've noticed, and I don't think today Bruce isn't here, but one thing we decided is it is our job to protect all of you and to protect your children. One of the things we've implemented is that once service starts, we lock our doors. So if you happen to go out, Bruce is usually sitting where Chris is, he lets you back in. Okay? That is protect you. Our doors, you can get out of these doors at any time. You are not locked in this place. Don't ever have that fear. You punch out plunger, you are outside. But somebody to get in here is going to have to make such a racket and a commotion, they're going to have a bad day. So that's why if you happen to ever go out and you come back and go, oh, door's locked, that's weird. That's why. It's for your protection. It has nothing to do with anything other than that. And we haven't kept you from being able to get outside. Now, one thing that we have done is because this is a growing process for us. Actually, Cody brought this to my attention. We were locking the doors, and you know, the kids go outside at some point in my service at the end, and they go and they play. They get some of that energy out before we send them back home with you. And so they go outside and play, and we had the doors locked, and Cody brought up a good point. And so we're adjusting. As these plans develop, when they go out, Owen, Alyssa, they have a key. So that back door gets left unlocked. Because if there's an emergency outside, we want them kids to be able to get back inside. We don't want anybody fumbling for a key. We don't want anybody trying to unlock a door and get them back in. We want them to be able to get in and be safe. That's the whole reason behind that. Do you realize this school had a protocol for those doors to be locked? Many of the schools around here, you can't get in. But guess what? A teacher left one of the back facility doors propped open so they could get in and out. How do you think he got in? Through that door. Now you know why these doors are locked. It's because it is our job to protect you. Spiritually, physically, your well-being when you come to this place. The biggest, when you look at the statistics, I handed out statistics to everybody that was there. The biggest statistic is robbery. Well, why do you think that is? It's a church. Because you take an offering up every Sunday. Robbery is number one. You know the number two? Domestic violence. Problems within families. We don't know everybody's family. You could have that disgruntled parent. You could have that disgruntled uncle, whoever, whatever's going on. We don't know your families that could try to come in and wreak havoc and harm or take a child that's not supposed to have a child. We have to protect. And in the day, and it's sad to have to say that with the church, but in the day and the age we live, we have to be proactive. I don't want anybody in here to have to become a hero. Not on that level. Not on that level. Our goal is not to create heroes in that sense, because we didn't deal with a situation that we could have dealt with before it ever became a situation. We have no one's ever said anything, no one's ever threatened anything in this church, so don't anybody get spooked. It isn't like that. This is being proactive in love to make sure you're okay. That's why. That's the only reason. I'm going to quickly give you a few things here as we round out. Many of the world has conflicting views of what is called and what a man is. Some say it's grit, the square draw of determination, a work of being able to handle a weapon or something, and of course being someone like me with rock solid abs. That's right. Don't mess with me. But we have these pictures of what a man is. And with others, it may be, more of that touchy-feely guy. One that maybe isn't that, but he's just more sensitive. Maybe to some, it's having great leadership skills, good work ethic, that physical stature. Maybe they've amassed, what success is to the world. I mean, yes, those are a lot of the standards that we base things by, but let me give you just a few things. I'll just throw out the scriptures. But examples of who Jesus was. Jesus, he operated in what? The fruits of the Spirit. You read that in Galatians 5:22 and 23. He was full of the Spirit and he operated in those things, ministering to people through them. In Hebrews 10:9, it talks about how he was obedient to the Father's will. Jesus was a man. And also like Christ, that godly man, what did he do? He shunned, as Jesus did, he shunned that life of sin to follow after a life of righteousness. That was the man he demonstrated. And through that power of the Spirit, living for God, he followed God's teachings. He was also determined to accomplish God's will. We see in Isaiah even 50:7, whatever the cost would be. In Hebrews 12:3, you'll learn where he endured opposition and would never lose heart. And in John 13:1, it tells us that he was a man of love and sacrifice. See, those are all attributes of that hero that we see in Christ. Yes, the guts and the brawn, the fear, the not having the fear to go into the burning building. Guess what? The world was on fire when Jesus was here too. And he went into the burning building. He went in and he sacrificed himself and he poured out his blood on Calvary so that you and I could be saved. 1 Corinthians 16:13, you do have this one on the screen. It says, be on alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men. Be strong. I challenge every one of you men in here to be that. I've just shown you a portion of Christ. We already know the world standards. Now I've shown you Jesus' standards. You put those things together, and he's telling you, be on alert, because do you have to be on alert for anything if everything's going great? You only have to be on alert for things when there's evil on the scene, right? In 1 Corinthians 16:14, it goes on, it says, all that you do must be done in love. We can never forget that we do it out of love. Jacob went into that school out of love. You realize that? He didn't go in to be a hero. He went in because love drew him there. Yes, it was the love of his wife. Yes, it was the love of his child. But he also, once those were safe and he sent them on, he went in for the love of his heart, the love of a hero, to save children that he probably didn't even know because of love. So according to these verses, that true man is vigilant against danger, faithful to the truth, brave in the face of opposition, persistent through the trials of life, but above all, he's loving. Paul tells it this way. 1 Corinthians 13:11, when I was a child, I used to speak as a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I did away with those childish things. Men, it's time to stop thinking like a child, acting like a child, reasoning like a child. And it's time to grow up and become men. Men who are willing to go into the burning fires of life. Whether it's their family, whether it's families around them, whether it's a church, it doesn't matter. But willing, through love, to sacrifice all. Because a true man knows and stands for what is right. A complete man has not only those worldly elements that we already discussed, but is also a godly man that has the elements of Christ. Loves the Lord, loves life, and loves those who God has entrusted them with. Gentlemen, when you see your families, don't just see your families. These are individuals that God has entrusted you with their lives. You don't think putting them on the bus, you don't think putting them in school has anything to do with having to protect them. But I'm telling you, if you don't open your eyes, you are putting them in to the devil's youth group. That is exactly where they're at. They are exposed to everything. Many things are hidden from you. And things are allowed that you wouldn't allow in your own home. I've already pointed out, and I may point out some more next week, with the whole over-sexualization of our children. He's okay. He's all right. He's okay. You know what? When you don't hear that, when you don't hear the rustle of children in a church, all you're hearing is a dying church. I pray we continue to hear those little ones. It is perfect. There isn't anything up there we can't replace. Trust me, we have Baji. We know all about replacing things. But there's so much going on that we don't realize. The house is on fire. The schools are on fire. The government's on fire. The world is on fire. And I'm going to show you some video next week even too. Or tell you some stories at least. You know I don't mince words, and you know, man, I stand on the Word of God, and it doesn't matter where the chips fall, they fall where they may. I make no apologies. But I'm going to tell you right now, in many aspects, the church is on fire too. But no one wants to face it. No one wants to call it out. Met the wrong guy for that. Because you have to. So next week, do we have any heroes in the house? Think about that all week. Amen.